Hello everybody and thanks for tuning in. So this is my first full tutorial that I've ever uploaded or ever even created. So I do make a lot of mistakes and I'm very new at the process. So it turned out to be very long. I make mistakes, have to go back and fix them, perhaps take a little too long to explain certain things here and there, or maybe even not enough time to explain things. But I think it's important to show progress, and this is my first one, so whatever. Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be showing you today how I made this sort of trippy psychedelic eye animation. So I'll just go through how I built it in Illustrator and then how I animated it in After Effects using that illustration. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of Illustrator and After Effects. I would just assume that you guys have some basic knowledge on both of those softwares so that we can move through this smoothly. I mean, maybe in the future I'll do a tutorial on either one of those software or both. You guys can get a better sense of how to use that, but there's plenty of tutorials out there that can give you a crash course on using Adobe Illustrator or Adobe After Effects. So for now, what I'll do is we'll jump into Illustrator and we'll get going. Okay, so now that we're in Illustrator, you can see that I have the original artwork open. I just wanted to show you guys this before we move on to creating our own. So we can see, I'll just get the layers open. Probably should have set up my Illustrator so that's a little more easier to navigate around for this tutorial, but gotta roll with it. So, layers. Okay. All right. So I've got my 4 layers here. We've got the lids in the background. And there's the inner eye with some shadow there. Same with the background lid. You can see there's some upper and lower shading there. And once we start animating, you'll see why it's divided this way. We have the white part of the eye, which in this case is yellow. It's a little jaundiced looking. And then we have the pupil. And the pupil is the shading around the edges so that you get that lighter yellow. And then you have the outer part of the eye and then the inner part of the eye. And there's also reflections and shading put in there as well, just to make it look a little more complex so it's not as simple. And then we have the eyelids that will be doing the blinking on top. So I'm going to grab these colors so that we have them for when we create our own eye. So I'm going to take this, press I, and grab that color. And I will grab the yellow, grab the light blue, grab the dark blue. And those are the bases, because the shading we can kind of guess on our own. We'll just darken it a little bit, lighten it a little bit. These are the main colors we want to be using. So I'm going to copy that, open a new document, and let's see. I think 1080 by 1080 should do us pretty well. Okie dokie. So I'm going to paste that in here. Call this layer color palette. And I'm going to move that on the outside. Lock that layer. And let's start creating. So first, I think what we're going to make is just the general shape of the eye. So let's go to our shapes here. I'm going to go on this little, if you hit this little, this button on the side after you've held down and see these other shape options here, you can let go on this and it'll pop out a little window. So that's always there, which I tend to do because I use these tools a lot. So I'm going to go with the ellipse tool, make an eye shape, bring up the align window. So I just like to constantly make sure everything is as centered as possible. And you get some more options here. There we go. Align to artboard. Keep that in the center. And right now it looks like it's just white, as we can see here. So if this is going to be the bottom layer, this guy, then we need to make it that purple or burgundy or whatever it is. So we'll use the eyedropper and take that purple. And what I'm going to do is hit A, and that brings up these points here, the vertices of the ellipse. And if I pressed Shift C, I get this tool, which I forget what it's called. Anchor point tool. All right. So what I'm going to use this tool for is to convert these anchor points to hard corners, I guess is just the term I'm going to go with. So if I click on that, you can see it gets rid of the curve. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And then I'm going to grab this point and just extend, oops. Rather, I'm going to do Shift C again to bring up the anchor point tool. Grab this and pull it out. Try that again. Pull it out. If you hold Shift, you can keep a straighter line here, but I'm going to pull that out because I want it to be a little wider of a corner, like that. And then the same thing with the bottom. A little more. Nope. Cool. And then let's check it out. That's pretty close. Could be a little less maybe. Let's start this one over and bring it a little, yeah, a little more lemon-like. Okay. And it looks like we've got some shading on the top and bottom here, so that's easy to do. I'm going to copy and paste in place. So Command C for copy. This is all on Mac, by the way. Command C and then Command Shift V to paste in place. So that's right over top of where it was before. And I'm going to hold Option and drag this thing down so that's a little smaller than the shape underneath it. I will grab the shape underneath. And I need to bring up my color window. Color. Perfect. And show options. Excellent. And we'll bring up the hue, saturation, and brightness, and we'll darken it just a tad. And there we go. Look at that. Pretty cool. Okay, so that looks like we're done for that layer. So we'll just do, I'm going to call this background lid. And I'll lock that and make another layer. And the next layer is the eye, the white of the eye. So for that, let's see, that one's done. Right. Okay, so actually I'm going to unlock the background lid layer. I'm going to copy this guy and paste him on this layer in place once again. And I'm going to hold Option, make it a little smaller, about that big, and a little smaller this way, so it sinks into the middle there. And I will take the eyedropper tool and make it yellow. And that's kind of, yeah, that's what we want. And as you can see in this one, the upper lid, just like a regular human eye, the upper lid is covers more of the eye than the bottom lid does. So the bottom lid is a little thinner. So we want to emulate that. So I'm going to grab this and drag it just down a tad. A little more, and then I'm going to move it up because I want these 2 points on the edges to line up with those outer edges. And what might make this easier actually is I'm going to press A and bring up these anchor points again. And I'm going to click on the top one and just use the arrow keys to move that down. Boom. Looking pretty sweet. And let's get this shading in here. So we'll grab this, Command C, Command Shift V to paste in place. Hold Option so that we can adjust both edges at the same time. Drag that into about there. Grab the one underneath. And let's drag the darkness down. Look at that. Cool. Let's call that, I'm just going to call it eye white, even though it's yellow. Next layer is the pupil. This one should be fun to do. So I'm going to lock the eye white, make a new layer, call it pupil. Okie dokie. And I'm going to grab the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold Command and Shift. Command, nope, not Command, Option. What Option lets you do is, I think you got it, yeah, okay, right. So if you hold Option while you're drawing, it'll let you draw from where your cursor is outward, and keeping that as the center of your shape. If I don't hold Option, it draws outwards like that, like it's drawing from the anchor point of the shape is at the corner versus in the middle. So I'm gonna hold Option and Shift so that it stays a perfect circle rather than an oval. And let's see what that size is like. Make sure it's aligned to the center of the artboard, which it is. All right, let's go over here. Yeah, it's about that size. So it's this colored blue. And then we have the inner part of the pupil. I don't know my biology, so I'm just going to call it inner, outer. That's good enough. So I'm going to Command C, Command Shift V, hold Shift and Option. Make that about that big and push it up a little bit, because if it's in the dead center, it kind of looks weird. I think it should be up there. And that is the blue we use. I think it's a little bigger, so I'm going to make this one a little larger. Cool. Now let's get that white reflection or white highlight around the pupil right there. So I'm going to paste this in place. Command open square bracket sends it backwards, and I want to send it. Yeah, there is good. Actually, one more time to get it behind the duplicate of this. Anyway, I'm going to hold Option Shift, make this thing a little bigger. Click the eyedropper tool, take the yellow, and brighten that sucker up. That's too bright. A little more noticeable than that. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a lot thicker here, so let's figure out what we're doing. All right, let's make them a little, might make this guy a little smaller. So you can see it's a lot of trial and error. That's how this goes. I think that's looking pretty good. Yeah. Cool. So now I want to add these highlights, these ones here and that guy. So I'm going to take this, Command C, Command Shift V, make it about that small, brighten it up a tad, and then Command C, Command Shift V. I'm going to zoom in here, Command plus, make it even smaller, brighten that guy up even more. Yeah, look at that, cool. Grab the ellipse tool, hold Shift and Option, and make a brighter version of that. Yeah, a little darker than that. That's pretty good. All right, so we're pretty close. Yeah, I think we're good to go ahead and, oops, we're missing one more thing. Let's go back. We need the lid on the very top as well. This is the lid that's actually going to do the blinking, and the reason it's on the top is so that when it blinks, it covers the rest of the eye. So let's see what that looks like. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go to the background lid. I'm going to copy the inner one. Copy that. Bring these back. And over top, I will add another layer and call this foreground lid. Stick with our original patterning. Foreground lid. Command Shift V. Cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste in place again. Make it a little smaller. Just want to, yeah, no, that's probably good. And I'm actually going to make that, do the same thing again, click on A, so you can grab the anchor points here and move that down. Move that one down so that the upper lid is hanging a little lower. And then This is a pretty cool tool. Pathfinder. Oh, it was already there. All right. So I'm going to grab this one first, the one that's on top, and then I grab the one on bottom as well, holding shift. And I'm going to click on this tool, which is minus front. So it's going to use the, well, I'll show you what it does. So you can see what it did is it took the top shape and used it to cut that shape out of the layer underneath. So you can see now we have that as the lid to animate. The lid that's going to be doing the blinking. Okay, we'll lock that, and I'm going to delete the color palette because we no longer need that. And boom. So I'm going to save this on the good old desktop. I1. Cool. Now let's jump into After Effects. Start animating this thing. Okay, so now that we're in After Effects, let's make a new project here. Just gonna save it. Again, just right on the desktop. It's a pretty good name for it, nice and unique. And let's start by importing the artwork. So I'm gonna do Command I on the library there. And there it is. I01 is an Illustrator file, and this is important here. You want to import as composition and retain layer sizes. So that'll build a composition for you. So you can see it's already built there, and if I go into that, it's made the composition up, and it has all of the layers from Illustrator right here. Cool. And for the purpose of this, I'm actually going to turn the resolution down. I'm not working on a very fast computer, so I'm going to turn that down as well as the playback resolution. Yeah, that should be okay. Cool. Let's figure out the blinking first. Why don't we tackle that? So let's take a look at our previous work. I'm just going to take a look at this here. So we have a couple things going on here. We have the pupil is moving around. So you can see it's just kind of darting. I don't even know if it's darting. It's kind of just hovering around. And then we have the blinking. And we have this cool expanding psychedelic background. So three levels of basic animation, and then we also have, you can see this texture that I've applied. And that we'll do inside of After Effects. So you may have been wondering where that was in Illustrator, but that's going to be done in After Effects, which I'll show you how to do. So for now, why don't we start with just the blinking? Let's get that down. And I think let's make each eye last 5 seconds. So you can see right now this comp is set to 30 seconds. It's kind of long. I think each eye only needs to be on screen for 5 seconds or so. Let's do 6. I love 6. So I am going to go to the 6 second mark. You can see here it says 6 seconds. And I'm going to hit N. That trims the playable area to there. That trims the end of the playable area. And then B would do the opposite. It would bring the beginning there. All right, and I'm going to right click on this section here. Trim comp to work area. And now that's the whole size of the comp now. It's 6 seconds. Brilliant. So let's do the blink. So I'm actually going to solo the foreground lid for now. Click on that so that we're just looking at that guy. And I'm going to right click on this and go to create. I'm working in After Effects CC 2018, by the way. So this create shapes from vector layer button may be in here somewhere, but in the newer After Effects, it sits under this create dropout here. And I'm going to hit create shapes from vector layers. And so you can see it's created a new layer here, and it's turned off the original Illustrator here below. And I can just delete that. We don't need that anymore. So on this is now a shape inside of After Effects. So you can manipulate all of the anchor points and things like that, which you can't do with just an Illustrator layer. This now lets you play with those anchor points. So if I drop this down, open up the contents, group 1 and group 2. Right. So I think what's happened here is there is a slight split right here at the corners of the eye. So what After Effects has done is bring that in as two shapes, the bottom and the top. That's okay, we'll roll with it. So if we open these groups and open the paths of each one. Cool. So that's the path of the bottom, that's the path of the top. And in fact, why don't we just let's just name these so we know what we're doing here. Bottom lid is that shape. Group 2 will be called top lid. Lid, capital L. Cool. All right, so let's start with the top lid. I'm actually going to put that on top because it makes more sense. There we go. And I'm going to click this little stopwatch thing next to the path. That creates a keyframe. And select this part of the layer here, and I'm going to click on this anchor point and holding shift so that it stays in line as I'm moving it. Oops. I can drag that down. And the top lid always, as we said earlier, it covers more of the eye than the bottom does. So I'm not going to bring it just to halfway. I'm going to bring it lower than that to about there. Perfect. And then I will do, actually, you know what? This is a mistake. I'm going to Command Z all of that, because first what we want to do is, now we have our original keyframe, but we want to create a separate keyframe for when the eyelid is closed. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. For now, let's just do 15 frames. So I'm going to go to the 15 frame mark, hit the keyframe button here, and that makes another keyframe. Now here is where we'll do the animation, where the eyelid will close. So now I'm going to do this wonderful part here. Drag that down. And let's go to the bottom lid and do the exact same thing. Set a keyframe there, go to the 15 frame mark, set another keyframe. Then I can move these anchor points. So I'm going to move this one up, and I'm going to put it underneath a little bit. You got this nasty black line showing up, but that is because we are on quarter resolution. So if I pumped up to full, it's still there. So maybe we'll bring the top lid a little lower like that. There we go, it's gone. Magic. Okay, so now we have an eyelid closing. So I'm gonna just check this out. Go to the 1 second mark, and I'm gonna press N, and that'll bring this playable area down to here. And it'll loop back and forth, so we can actually just watch what that looks like. So it's pretty cool. Let's check out the original again. Cool. All right, so it's okay. It's a little rigid. So I'm going to at least select all of these keyframes, hit F9, and that converts them to easy ease. So it'll ease in and ease out. So it'll speed up as it's starting to close, and then once it gets really close to closing, it'll slow down. So it looks a little smoother. I'll play it for you. It's much smoother than before. In fact, I'm going to select all of these and go to the graph editor. So you can see the start and the end of the animation is right here. So these are the speed curves. So you can see it speeds up and up and up, and then it slows down as it gets to the end, right there. So I'm going to select all of the keyframes, both keyframes for the beginning, and I'm going to drag this handle out so that it eases even more. So it starts slower and then really picks up speed. And then I want to do the same thing for here. I just want to make the beginning and the ending of this animation a little more drastic. So I'm going to get out of the graph editor, See if you can notice a difference here. Yeah, I think I noticed a difference. So the acceleration is very quick. I do want to make the last one a little slower there. I think that's looking pretty good. Right, so we have a couple shades going on, right? We have this one starts to close, and then you can see following it is a darker shade of that, and then beyond that is an even darker shade of the eyelid. So how I did that was I'm going to duplicate this eyelid that we've got going now. And before we do that, actually, let's finish the animation on this. Let's make it open up again. So let's have it stay closed for, I don't know, 15 frames. That sounds good. And I'm actually noticing that right now, the frame rate of this comp is set to 2997. And just to make things easier, I'm going to press Command K, and I'm going to switch that to 30. I don't need 2997. 30 will do just fine. And there we go. Hit OK. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go to 1 second later, or 30 frames later, and I'm going to create new keyframes, go to the 2 second mark, and I'm going to copy the first sets of keyframes. Copy, paste, and there we go. Let's take a look at these in the graph editor. All right, so they're a little wonky looking. They obviously don't look like this at all. Partly that has to do with me copying the keyframes from over here, because these keyframes have some graph editing already done to them. So I'm going to just start these ones from scratch. I'm going to press Command, click on them, convert them back to regular keyframes with no ease on them. Select those once again, hit F9. See, now things are looking a little more fluid and uniform. So I'm going to select these keyframes, drag this out, drag that out. So it kind of looks like that. This is the closing. This is when the eyelid closes and opens. Cool. I think that looks pretty good. All right, now that we have the eyelid blinking, let's do some of that shading. So I'm going to duplicate this layer by pressing Command D. And let's see here. If I press U, it'll bring up all of the keyframes that exist within that layer. And I'm going to see, this should be, you know what, I'm going to bring up everything in there. Perfect. All right, so the top lid, I want to be not just a little less closed than before. And the bottom lid, the same thing. There we go. And I want to copy those keyframes. Go over here, because now you can see it's slowly moving back to this position. Paste over those. All right, well, we can't really see it yet, but how do we have it in here? We have a lighter one on the inside and a darker one on the outside. So this one is going to be on the outside. So I'm going to bring up my color here for the fill. That's for this shape. Click on the fill, and I'm going to go to brightness and just darken that a little bit. There we go. Now you can see what we're working with here. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. That's pretty close to what we had before, I believe. Oh yeah, it's even a lot lower actually on here. So maybe what we'll do is bring that lower and bring that lower. And another thing I did was delay the shaded part a little bit. So the inner part closes first, and then shaded portion is just delayed slightly behind that. And the way we can do that is just make it take a little bit longer to close. So if I select these keyframes, Option, right arrow key, move those, let's say three inwards. I'm going to take these ones and move them 3 backwards. And that just means it takes a little longer to reach its closed position. Oh, I got something weird going on, because I haven't copied these. So I'm going to copy those, bring them over here, paste. Boom. Here we go. There, I like it. And actually what I think I'm going to do is even make it start, let's say 2 frames after the initial eyelid starts to close. And we'll finish opening 2 frames earlier. There we go. That's a nice delay. I think that looks cool. So let's just get rid of the solos for now and just take a look at what's going on. There we go. There we go. We got 3 levels of shading. We got the lighter portion here, the mid portion, and the dark. Dark doesn't move. It's just the light in the mids. And I think that looks great. Yeah, look at that. Pretty exciting. All right, next step. Let's make the eyelid, or sorry, the pupil move around a bit. So I'm just going to solo the pupil and the eye white. Zoom in, not that much. It's a little crazy. Take the pupil, and I'm going to bring up the position property, highlight position, and I'm going to use an extension that's free on the internet. Actually, it's completely free download. It's called Duik, and they just have a whole bunch of really cool tools, especially for character animators. They have a whole rigging system that you can use. It's pretty intuitive, and there's plenty of tutorials online that'll teach you how to use Duik. But for this portion, I'm only going to be using 1 or 2 elements of it, and I'll show you what those are in a second. So it looks like I haven't installed it on this account. Okay, here we go. This is Duik. So there's a couple tabs here for different tools. This is all character animator stuff. So you got the IK and all kinds of really cool things, making bones, and I've used this quite a lot for character animation. But for now, we are going to be doing this, automation. I'm actually going to drag this right there. Cool. And what we want to do is wiggle the position expression. So wiggle, these are like just glorified, well, simple versions. They're extensions, right? So you can write a script in here if I wanted to. If I wanted to write a script in here or an expression rather, to wiggle the position of this pupil, I could do that. But Duik makes it much more intuitive. So I'm going to Command Z, highlight the position, click wiggle, confirm. And now if we go to the pupil and, oops, our effect controls, I need that window. There we go, effect controls, pupil, perfect. You can see Duik's brought up some things for you to play with here. So we have the position wiggle, you have the amplitude, so that's how the distance that it's going to wiggle around, and then the frequency. So how often you want it to wiggle, or how often do you want it to wiggle? How quickly is it wiggling? Okay, so I'll give you an extreme example here. So let's set the amplitude to something like 50, which I would assume means you're giving it a range of 50 pixels to move within. It won't move any further than 50 pixels from its origin, but it can move anywhere within 50 pixels in any direction. So we'll set that to 50, and the frequency is how many times per second it's going to wiggle, is actually what that is. So I'll set that to, let's say, 10. This is going to be really crazy. Yeah. So pretty insane and unrealistic and wild, but you can see how cool and easy this thing is, right? Duik makes it pretty simple. So no, that's insane. Let's drag that down. Let's make that like 10, and the frequency I want to be pretty low. So let's go with like a second and just see how that looks. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm also gonna extend this because it's too short of a loop to really get a sense of the movement. Cool, so that's looking pretty good. I think it could move a little further, so let's extend that to 15 pixels. I think that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little less frequent. So 0.8 instead of every second. There, I think that's pretty solid. And you'll notice at some points here, for instance, let's bring up the res, it comes outside of the white of the eye. But that's not a problem because once we take these solos off, you'll see it's covered by the top eyelid. Now let's watch that. Let's watch everything together. Now that I'm looking at it, I think the blink takes a little too long. Like once it's closed, it lasts quite a while. So I'm going to select these two and press U. And I'm going to select all of these keyframes, hold Option, and just drag that in a little bit so that the closed portion of the animation is a little shorter. Now let's check that out. Even shorter than that. Even shorter. Yeah. Cool, look at that. Sweet. All right. So let's create two more versions of this eye so we can have two different color schemes going on. So for that, I'm going to go into Illustrator. I'm going to save as, so Command-Shift-S, I2. And I'm actually going to take this color scheme here. Oops. Let's add another color scheme layer. I am Canadian, if you're wondering. That's why there's a U in color. Okay. So now we want to change these colors up a bit. So why don't we start with just picking 4 colors to start with. And let's make them a little, we want to make them different enough so that they're not, it's a drastic enough change when it goes from one eye to the next. So in the color sliders here, I'm going to drag the hue around. So this was a dark blue. Why don't we make it a green? Yeah, like that looks pretty good. Make this a lighter version of that green. That's cool. The yellow has to be something nice and light. So if we do the blue, I want to make that saturation a little less, the brightness higher. It should be good. We'll take a look. These are probably subject to change once we start coloring the eye, and you'll see how they work together. This guy, let's make him, let's make him purple. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to unlock all of that. And let's just start with the background lid. So we'll take this, and I drop that. I drop this and drag the brightness down. There we go. And now let's go to the eye white. Take this light blue. Take the light blue once again, make that darker. It's already looking pretty cool. Bring up the pupil. Remember, this was a lighter version of the yellow, so I'm going to take the blue and make that a little lighter. I like that. And the inner part here was, I believe, this green. And then the darker blue of the inside of the pupil will be that dark green. Let's drag that and lighten that up. Cool. There we go. Super cool. And this will be a lighter version of that. There, look at that. Super cool. I love those colors. Okay, we'll take that out of there. Get rid of the, oops. No, we forgot one more layer. Right. Of course. This guy is just the color of that. Yes. Done. Okay. Now we'll get that out of here. Get rid of the color scheme layer. Save, and that will be I2. So now we'll go back into After Effects. Go into Project. I2. Composition. So we don't want it as, it's importing as a sequence, and we don't want that. So I'm going to uncheck that and check Create Composition. Okay, delete that composition. Duplicate that. There we go. Okay, so now I will go into this I2 composition again. And as you can see, we have all the animation here. The pupils wiggling and everything. Cool. But I will open up the I2 layers folder. Highlight the background lid layer in your composition. Hold Option and drag the background lid from the project window there and let go on top of that. And now you can see what it's done is it's replaced the background lid layer with the one from here. So it's blue. And we're going to do that with these two as well. The eye white, I will drag that. And the pupil, I will do the same thing here. Cool. Now, the only two we have left are these guys. And unfortunately, I can't replace it with these now because this is no longer an Illustrator layer. This is a shape layer. We've converted it. So for this, what I'm just going to do, just want to open this up a little bit, is I'm just going to color these myself using the color picker up here. So this guy is, I'm going to just get rid of these for now. Let's color these two portions of the lid. Let's go to this guy. He is the inner portion, is the lighter one. So I'll bring up a color picker here, take the eyedropper and select that, but make it a little lighter because that's the inside. And then select the topmost one, which is the darker version. Select the eyedropper and click on that. There we go. Let's bring the pupil back and the eye white. And we should be good to go. Look at that. I realize I'm saying, look at that, quite a lot, but I'm excited. This is looking cool. Nice. Okay, so now let's make one more eye because we want to have 3 total. Just going to do the same process again. So let's make we'll do Command Shift S, I3. Bring another color palette in here. Color palette. And let's pick 4 new colors. Four new colors. So we've had a burgundy outer layer for the lids. We've had a dark purplish blue. Why don't we do green for the outer lid? Let's see how that looks. And we'll make the inside red. Yeah, red-ish. And this should be a lighter version of that red. Yeah, I think that looks cool. And the yellow, let's make it kind of green. Lighter green. Let's see how that works. So, for the eyelid, start one at a time here, as usual. So this guy is going to be green. This will just be a darker version of that green. A little darker than that, yeah. Bring up the eye white, make that this light green. And darken that sucker up. Yeah. The pupil, a lighter version of that green. Like that. And the inside, I believe, was the red. So we'll go with this guy. And that guy. Ooh, yeah, this is looking cool. Might even like these colors more than the ones I originally chose. Yeah, I think that looks great. Awesome. Get rid of the color scheme. Delete. Oh, forgot this guy. As usual. There we go. Okay. I3. Done. Let's go to After Effects. Same procedure as before. We'll bring in I3. Composition, retain layer sizes. And we'll delete that composition. Duplicate one of the other ones. And go into it. And replace these with the layers from I3. So background lid. I white, hold Option. Drag it from the project window on top of that. And same with the pupil. And then we just got to color these guys. Ooh, sounds like we're getting a thunderstorm. That should make for some great background ambiance. Okay. This is the, let's see. Right, this is the lighter one. Get rid of that stuff. So this one has to be that color, and the inside one will be that color, but a little brighter. A little brighter, yeah. Oh, let's get these guys back because it looks weird. Cool. That's it. We just did 3 eyes, guys. Now, we want to put those 3 eyes together. So I'm going to make a new composition. 1080 by 1080 is perfect. And I'm going to call this underscore main comp. Just want it to stay at the top there. We'll put the I1 down. Oh, we want to extend this actually. So let's Command K on the main comp selection there. And I'm going to make this 18 seconds long since we're going to have 3 eyes in here. Drag the I1 in. Zoom out by hitting the minus key. I2 and I3. So how it worked in the previous animation was every time the eye closed, that's when we would switch over to the next eye. So we're missing something here. We have a blink, and there's no blink here before it transitions to this next eye. So to fix that, what I'm actually going to do is open this up. All right, so I kind of messed up this part here because we want the eye to, the composition to start on the eye being closed and end on the eye being closed, rather than just to have a blink right here. So to start on it closed means it has to start on these frames. So basically we have to reverse these. So I'm going to take these keyframes, drag those out here, bring these ones to the beginning so that it opens, take these and drag it to the end, like that. And that should be it. So now the eye opens at the very beginning, stays open for the entirety of the animation, and then closes. There we go. Super simple. Now I have to do the same thing for the other 2 comps as well. So let's go into I2. Press U to bring those up. Drag these to the end. And then drag these to the beginning. Let's double check. Open up. Close. Amazing. I3. Same deal. Oops, there we go. Drag these to the end. Drag these to the beginning. Boom. And then close. Okay, so now let's go to the main comp. Things should look better now. The eye opens up. And then once it closes, it changes. There we go. So now what we'll do is we'll move on to the nice trippy background. Well, as you can see up here, it's now Thursday. I had to stop this tutorial and start again the next day because the storm got so intense, the power went out and trees are downed all over the place. So now it's bright out and looking beautiful. I can hear the birds chirping, so let's get back into this. So for the psychedelic background, if we take a look at the previous work here. So I don't think I actually chose the colors. I might have chosen them by trial and errors. I think what I did, I didn't use the previous existing color schemes for these eyes as for the background. So we're just gonna wing it. Okay. So how this worked was I brought in an eye shape, so I can just use any one of these eye white layers from the eye work we've done. And I'm going to align this to the center, make sure it's in the center of the comp. Perfect. I'm going to Effect, Generate, Fill. That lets me choose any color I want. And let's just go, I wanted something vibrant. I think that was my motivation for the colors I chose for the background previously. So I want something nice and vibrant and different from what the first eye looks like. So I don't want it to be close to that burgundy. So why don't we do, let's try this blue. Okay. And I want to check this option next to the layer, which is the continuously rasterize option. And what continuously rasterize does is ensures that the artwork maintains its vector properties. So no matter how large I scale this, the edges are crisp, the quality is not lost. So if I uncheck that and scale this thing up and look at the edges, you can see they're kind of gross looking. Check it again, crisp. All right, so that lets you scale as much as you want without losing any quality. All right, so what we're gonna do here is have this thing grow from a smaller size because we want it to be smaller than the original eye. So why don't we go down to like 85%, make a keyframe for the scale, and let's do 3 seconds and bring that thing big enough to cover the screen. Make sure that's checked. Yeah, that's good. So that's good for now. We can adjust that later if we need to. Cool. All right, so let's duplicate that and offset it by, let's do a second. A second. Perfect. Okay, so this next one, we want to pick a different color. So something, yeah, I like that green. Let's do that. So now we have, oops, did the wrong one. I want this guy to be green. Bring down the saturation a bit. Yeah, there we go. One. Yeah, I think it's a little too soon. I want more of a larger spacing in between them. So I'm going to bring that to 1.5 seconds. Yes, perfect. I will duplicate that and bring it to 3 seconds, which is another 1.5 seconds later, and choose a different color. And I think we'll go with 4 colors overall and see how that fares. For this guy, let's go. Yeah, I like that. And then one more at 4.5 seconds. Make this one, I don't think we've done a yellow yet. There, it looks like a lemon. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so now what we want to happen is we want this to loop. So at about 6 seconds, we want the blue to come back in again. So I actually did this a pretty tedious way. There may be better ways to do this, but this is just the way I went with. So I actually duplicated all of these layers, brought them back on top, and brought them over to here. So it's another 1.5 seconds later, and I just did that until I filled the comp with those. So if I go to here, that's 10.5 seconds, so we'll go to 12. Duplicate the previous 4. Command D to duplicate, drag them up to the top, drag them over, like so. And now we've got a looping piece. There we go, look at that. Look at that. Awesome. So now let's go back out to the main. Let's go to the project tab, main comp, and I'm going to drag the psychedelic background to the bottom here. And that's pretty cool. We got that the eye opening synced with the background growing. So I think that looks pretty cool. Very awesome. All right. Now, one thing I did with the background, which you'll notice in the previous one, is it's all wavy looking. And so what I did there is an effect called turbulent displace. So if you go into effects here and distort, turbulent displace, so you get something that's nice and wonky looking. So that's, I think, a little too crazy, so I'm going to lower the amount to 30, and that's a little better, maybe less than that actually, 20. Yes. And I don't want it to just stay static, to remain in that shape. I want the shape to kind of warp a little bit as it's growing. So I'm also going to twirl this down, open my effects tab, open turbulent displace, click on offset, and go into my Duic settings again and click on wiggle. There we go. And I'm going to drag these up until I find something that I like. So I'm going to solo this just so I don't see the eye right now. And let's try... For fun, let's just try 50 and 10 and see what happens. All right, so a couple things here. I think it's moving too fast, and I don't think it's warping enough. So I'm going to drag the amplitude up to 100, and I'm going to lower the frequency down to 3. And it's getting better. I'm going to do 200 and 1. 500, let's go even higher. That's pretty cool. See, I think that looks much better now. Maybe even 750. And let's get that amount up to 30 as well. So it looks a little more distorted. And it's pretty wonky looking. Try lowering the frequency down to half a second. There, I think that's really cool. So maybe we can roll with that. Okay. Let's see what it looks like with the eye. Wonderful. Okay. And let's also add a background in here. Command Y, which brings up a create a new solid options. 1080 by 1080 is good. Gray is what I want. Maybe not that dark though. Brighten that up. Drag that to the bottom. Not so psyched about that. Maybe that's better. My idea for that was until the eye opens, everything's kind of dull looking. So when the eye opens, that's when color begins. Okay, and last but not least, I applied a texture to everything to give it that sort of rough watercolory or painted texture look. So for that, I actually just grabbed a picture off of Google. I just searched painted texture and I got quite a lot of options. And I ended up just going with this image here, which I'll bring over to the screen. There we go. So this, which kind of looks like ice, actually, where it looks like ice fractals and stuff. This looks pretty cool. Actually, just noticing there's some rather random artifacts in here, so I'm going to crop that out. Command K. Perfect. And I'm going to save that. That's what I'm going to bring in. So I'm going to bring that into my project. Just close these, get them out of the way. And oops, I brought it in as a... Oh, we're all good. Okay. So let's go to the main comp. And we'll start with the background. So we'll do that first. I'm going to take the texture and bring it over top of both of the backgrounds. And I'm going to... It's not popping up right now, so I'm going to open... Click on one of these buttons down here. Should be the middle one. Right, well that one. The transfer controls pane is what we want to have open so that we have access to this mode tab here. So what we're going to do is change this to multiply, and that's just going to leave the, not sure what the word is, but it's going to leave the texture and take out a lot of the, it's going to make it less opaque first off, and leave the texture ingrained in the layers below. So you can see it retains the color, the colors of the layers below, but the texture is still over top. And I'm actually going to lower the opacity just a bit because I think it's a little intense. Let's try 50. Yeah, 50 is pretty good. And I also don't want it just to sit there and be static. I want it to change. So what I did was have it rotate, just constantly be rotating or shifting positions just so that it's not static. So we'll go to our texture layer, hit R to bring up our rotation properties, and we'll make a keyframe here. Go 2 frames forward, 180 degrees. And I'm going to bring that actually just to 1 frame so it doesn't, we don't see it doing the full rotation there, because you can see it's animating it from 0 to 180. So I'm going to drag that to, so there's only a space of 1 frame between them. So that flips, that goes up. And then let's have it go to 90 degrees and then 270 degrees. We want it to feel as random as possible. So if you can tell that it's spinning, then it's might be a little distracting and it'll look less chaotic and random. And we want the chaotic and random. So scaling might be an idea too. So I'm also going to play with the scale. Bring up the scale properties and hit that. Hit U so that I can see both sets of keyframes here. And here I'm going to drag the scale up to 120%. And I'm going to bring up position as well. And I'm going to move it here, let's say over there. And then back here, bring the position and scale keyframes from the beginning back, copy and paste those. And I might scale it up actually a little bit, 110, and bring that over here. And here, bring the beginning keyframes back again, but I'm going to drag it down. And that might look a little more chaotic, so it doesn't just look like it's spinning anymore necessarily. It might. So maybe here I'll actually, oops, flip this. So yeah, I think it still kind of looks like it might be spinning. Let's see what it looks like once it's looped. So I'm going to hold Option, click on my stopwatch next to the position, and I'm going to type loop out with a capital O, open bracket, open quotes, and cycle with a capital C, end quote, end bracket, semicolon. And what that does is loop all of the keyframes of this property. So the position keyframes are going to start looping right after the end keyframe. It'll loop this section over and over and over into infinity. And I'm going to copy that expression, hold Option, click on the scale stopwatch, paste it there. Hold Option, click on the rotation stopwatch, paste it there, and that's going to loop all 3 properties. And that's pretty damn fast. So I want to make that slower. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to select all these, hold Option, and that lets you expand the spacing in between all of them. So let's try up to 9 frames. And then, because we don't want to see the actual animation in between these, right? We want to just have it, once it gets to frame 3, it should just jump to this position and rotation and scale rather than animating from here to here. So I'm going to select all of these, right click, toggle hold keyframe. And now you can see it. There is no animation between them. It holds on this frame, these properties, until we reach frame 3, and it switches. So now I'm going to zoom out and let that play and see what the loop looks like. That's pretty good. I think that's nice and chaotic looking. And I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit. Just a little bit here. So if I press T, that brings up my opacity properties. And I'm going to bring that down to 50. There we go. Also, Option question mark or Option // zooms in to fit the window here. Zooms your comp in. Cool. So next, I also want to add some texture to the eye, which I don't believe I animated. I think that kept that. Oh no, I did. That was animated as well. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to duplicate this texture, and I'm going to bring it on top of all of these eyes, and I'm actually going to bring in any background lid layer, because I want something that's going to be the same size as our eye underneath. So I'm going to bring this on top of the texture, and I'm going to solo these two so we can see what's going on. All right, so what we want to happen here is we want a texture over top of the eyes below, but we want it to only cover that. So right now it's covering everything. So if we take the texture layer and go to Track Matte, click on Alpha Matte, what it's going to do is use the layer above it as a mask. So now wherever the background eye is, that's the only part of the texture we see. So it's going to do that with whatever layer is above it. So now we'll unsolo that. And I'm also going to offset this because right now the texture, the animation on this texture and this one are the exact same. So we want to offset this one so the rotation, scale, and position animation are not perfectly in sync. So let's take this. I'm just going to drag it backwards a little bit. There you go. So you can tell now this is different than that. And one more thing I want to do is I want to give it the look of a lower frame rate. So if you remember in here, right, when you can see these things expanding, they expand. You can see it's not a smooth, the animation's not necessarily smooth. It's moving at a lower frame rate. So how I did that was I added a adjustment layer. So if you right click in the space in here, new adjustment layer, and whatever effects you put on this adjustment layer, it's going to apply to everything below. So I'm going to go to Effect, Time, Posterize Time. So you can actually set, I think essentially what this thing is doing is dropping frames. So, or it's skipping over frames. So if I set this to, even though the comp frame rate is 30, if I set this to 15, it's going to only play every second frame. So your export is still going to be 30 frames per second, but posterized time gives you the effect of being only 15 frames per second, which I think is still too smooth, so I'm going to lower that even more to 10. And truthfully, I want to speed the background up, because I think it's going a little slow. It could go faster than that. All right, so I'm going to right click on the psychedelic background, time stretch, and I'm going to cut it in half so that it's half the length that it was before. You can see right here, it's going to tell you the new duration is 9 seconds instead of 18. Press OK. It's a lot faster than it was. So I'm going to go a little slower than that. Let's go to time reverse. That's wrong. Time stretch 60. I think that's pretty good. All right, so we've got an issue. We have our psychedelic background is ending before the eyes finish here. So it needs to last 18 seconds. So now we got to lengthen this thing. So go inside the psychedelic comp and Command K to bring up our composition settings. And I'm going to lengthen this to 30 seconds rather than 18. And remember, 18 seconds means, you know, less than 9 seconds on the outside, or a little more than 9 seconds because it's sped up. So we have to account for that. So go to here. Let's see. I'm going to go to 17 seconds, 1.5 seconds later. Duplicate all these, drag them to the top, bring them over. Oops, that's not right. It's going to be 18 seconds. Okay. Two and a half, so 24. Duplicate, drag them up, bring them over to there. Perfect. So now if we go out to our main comp, now we have to extend this. Extend our psychedelic background all the way to the end. I think we have animation all the way up to the ending, yeah. There we go. That's it. And one last thing, just for stylistic purposes, I added a vignette to the scene that lessens when the eye opens at the beginning. So go to, actually I don't remember which tab it's under, so we'll bring up our effects and presets over here and search for vignette. Yeah, so already it looks kind of decent. So I'm going to, I wanted the vignette to lessen though when this eye opens. So I'm going to set a keyframe for the amount property of the vignette. And when the eye opens, about here, once it's open, so drag this amount down to 30. Press U so I can see those keyframes here. And I want to smoothen those out, so I'm going to hit F9. And it's not very noticeable. So let's make the amount at the beginning more noticeable. So 150. And I'm going to drag that last keyframe out. I want it to last a little longer, that transition. Again, I'm going to up the amount here a little bit. 175. I'm happy with that. That's good. I think that's it. I think we're good to go. Let's just watch the whole thing in its entirety to confirm that we're good. But I think it's looking pretty great. We do have the texture not lasting long enough. I'm going to bring it up to there. Thus ends this animation tutorial. And that's it. Now it's playing slowly for some reason. I don't know why. Well, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial that I sort of borked my way through. It's my first one, so hope you guys still got something out of it. Take care, guys. Leave some comments below. Subscribe if you want to stay in touch with the things I do, the cartoons I make, the work I do, or the tutorials that I'm going to be putting out. I'm hoping to put out more. More as I go. So, but that's it. Take care.